We are now at part C of engaging students through active learning. Right now, what we're going to do in this part is to figure out which strategies work really well and when and how, because I've given you exposure to a lot of them, but still, no matter how well you've planned, you have to be very purposeful on the implementation so that the learning environment is as successful as possible. And so here are the two learning goals that we're going to have for this part. You're going to analyze the best approaches for implementing active learning. And guess what? You're not going to walk around with, thank you very much for these strategies. I want you to be able to immediately incorporate that into your module or your class. So remember this quote on there, what is your role? Your role is to advance learning by influencing what the student does to learn. The student has to learn and through doing. So that means doing things and thinking about the things that they are doing. Two things, think and do. So students learn best, remember this, they discuss, they can practice, and they can apply. And you also did this one. We did this hurdles and obstacles as you're walking down the hall and you're so excited and you and your colleagues go, no, these are the things we have to think about. And actually, that's probably good that you had this conversation, because what happens with things where you hear from your colleagues is, it's try it, you like it, do it. And sometimes it doesn't. So maybe it's pretty good to hear some of these naysayers, because what we're doing now is to do what we say in the business school, a risk analysis. And I'm going to show you some ways where you can minimize risk and increase the rate of success. Isn't that what you want to do? All right. So here's a continuum. I want you to take note of this. Everything that's on the left side is what you might call lowering the risk. Do simple tasks that doesn't need a lot of steps. Just do one thing to do. If they can do it by themselves, that lowers the risk. Short amount of time. That means it only takes a minute, 10 minutes, 15. Remember, some of those activities that we had you do was very short. Also, that the more informed, that means the students know the content, the better it is. And if you feel very comfortable with the strategy, at that point, you lower the risk. What are some things that does increase risk? One is complex tasks. Complex tasks needs a lot of steps to it. So many of those projects that you might want to have at the end of the semester are very complex, needs a lot of steps, and it involves more than one, usually pairs or teams of students to work together. It takes lots more time. It doesn't take just class time. It may take the full semester. Students, if they're not as sure about the content and also about the strategy. So for instance, if they were supposed to do a simulation, remember, they not only have to learn the content, they also have to learn what are the steps in doing a great simulation. And if you're not very comfortable or you haven't done the strategy at a while, then that does increase the risk. So as much as you can do to address the areas on this side, right there, then you will increase the success rate on there. So let's check and see if you really understand this, and be very purposeful when you hear about a strategy to implement in your class. So we have 4 quadrants, and I want you to notice that at the top, students are more active. At the bottom, students are more passive. So they're more active or they're more passive. What's on the left and the right? Lower level of risk. This is a higher level of risk. And so I'm going to give you a particular activity, and what you're going to do at that point is to tell me which quadrant it goes into. So think about, how about voting? Are the students more active or they're more passive? Is it a low level risk or a high level risk? Okay, students are more active because everyone's participating, and also it's a lower level of risk because they're not showing what their response is. So it goes over there. Let's think about another one, about things like I said, role play or simulation. Are the students more active or more passive? More active, because there's many of them involved. Is it low risk or high risk? Definitely high risk. So you would put it over here in quadrant B. Let's give you another strategy, which is question and answering. Yes, absolutely, that is an active learning strategy. Tell me which quadrants that goes in. Questioning and answering. What did you say? Did some of you say it's in C? Yeah, it's more passive because only one student can answer a question at a time, and it's a low level of risk. No, wait a minute. Is this a trick question? No, I just want you to think about this. Actually can go into D, which students are still passive, but it increases to level of risk depending on the kind of question you're going to ask. So if it's something like 2 + 2 is 4, obviously that's a low risk on there. But if you're saying something like, which strategy is better to do? Create a business plan. Evaluate which way we should proceed. That's a higher level of risk, and therefore it goes in a quadrant D. So now you understand what we should do. Lower risk, stay on the left side. If it's something in the higher risk, try to think as many things that you can do that pulls from the left side so you can increase the level of success for you and also for your students. So, it's time to hit pause again. Think about this question. What active learning strategies have you experienced thus far? All right, here are some things that you've already had. The background probe, unannounced, ungraded in-class activity. That's the one I changed from a quiz. Fill in the blank, write down, we hit pause several times. Pass the problem, remember that was the hurdle one. Defining characteristics, that's the one you just did, where you did the analysis of the different kind of strategies in order to, like a risk analysis, in order to increase the success. You just now did this one, which is another hit the pause strategy again, about what active learning strategies have you experienced. Oh, wait, we haven't done this one. So let's go to the next step because I want you to master this strategy also. Active learning is formative assessment. You may recall, maybe not. Formative assessment means to improve. It's something that you do right away in class to get a pulse on what's happening, the status of it. And so this is a great book. It's called Classroom Assessment Techniques. I know you've been exposed to this many times already on there. And the reason I'm highlighting this is because you're saying, I don't have time, or I'm not that creative to figure out all of these activities. Thank you, Cheelan, for giving me some of these strategies on there, but I really need to know a little bit more. And so this book, we should call them CATs. Classroom Assessment Technique, not the animal, which I'm not quite fond of, but I am fond of these kind of cats on there. Now, why is this good? Well, one, they're active learning strategies. Yay, you get to learn many more. Their formative assessment means that you can implement right away and get very, very important feedback, not only for yourselves, but your students also kind of figure out how much they really know. The one is ungraded. Who doesn't love not to grade some more stuff? It's learner-centered. That means you're focusing on the learning and that you decide which activities to choose, and that's why it's director-centered. So let's get a glimpse into this. You have this in your handout. I just took a snapshot of some of these. And so guess what? You've already done some of these strategies. I'm pointing to number 3, a misconception on there. Have you done this strategy? Absolutely. You've done a background knowledge probe. Remember that was the one about how much do you know about active learning? Did we do any more? We did a minute paper. That's when we hit pause. Maybe we did another one of these CATs, classroom assessment techniques. Oh, we did. Defining matrix, and that was the one about whether it was active, not as active, low risk, and high risk. Did we do another CATS or classroom assessment technique? Yeah, we did one. we did the pros and the cons, and that was the hurdle one. So, oh my gosh, we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you now know 5 CATs, or 5 classroom learning strategies from this book. So now, I'm not going to let you go until you make a promise. So what active learning strategy or CATs will you implement? I'm going to take a minute, hit pause for you to write. Now, so you're on your way to create a highly interactive and engaging learning environment for your students, whether it's face-to-face or it's remote. And so we're at our end. Nope. Remember, you took a quiz, in-class activity. So don't you want to know how well you did? I do. I want to know. So here it goes. You can go back to your answers or you can change them. So let's figure out, what's the answer? Is a lecture an effective way to present a large amount of information? It's true. Yes. Why? Because all it is presenting. It doesn't mean that they learned. Number 2, in active learning, there's more emphasis on transmitting information and less on developing student skills. False, a big false. Right there. It's not just in transmitting information. That is just a typical lecture. This is active learning, an engaging session. Number 3, use of active learning creates a more inclusive classroom environment. That is absolutely true. Inclusive means everyone, regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their achievement level, they can all be successful. Number 4, is there a clear distinction between active learning and formative assessment? What's the answer? It is false. They are the same on there. It's for improvement right away. Now, number 5, I want you to think about this. The amount of pre-class preparation time needed to create or implement active learning strategies is more than that to create a thorough and thoughtful new lectures each time. What's the answer? Now, typically, I know the answer kind of splits between true and false, but the answer is false. It doesn't create more time. If you're the kind of professor that always reviews and always looks and enhances their lecture notes and their assignments and the strategies on there. And when you're thinking of ways to enhance it each time you teach it, don't take your old notes and just recycle them again. Think about those ways you can engage your students. Then it doesn't take any more time. So this brings us to the end. Congratulations, you accomplished all of these learning goals of defining the difference about active learning and the kinds of student engagement. You discussed, you analyzed, and the most important thing, you're now able to incorporate active learning strategies in your module. So this brings us to the end of this lesson on engaging students through active learning. Thank you very much.